want us to go on a journey through the nations to inspect their lamps. You did indeed hear that correctly. Now, I believe it was the great Google who once said, or Wikipedia depending on your interpretation, a lantern is an often portable lighting source that uses a handle, and we can see these all over Teyvat. Lantern can also be used more generally speaking when referring to light. Lamps on the other hand tend to be more stationary and are more often found in interiors, but either way, for today we will be taking a look at the light fixtures that are found all over Teyvat's exterior world, starting with this one. My first truly conscious thought on lamps in the world of Teyvat came when one day I decided to take a closer look at this lantern right here, when I noticed the parts that didn't get so much detail put into them because, well, I take it that I probably didn't expect someone to inspect a lamp of all things this closely. Look at that. Immersion ruined. These are the most commonplace lanterns used throughout Mondstadt's region, so it makes sense that they use wood. They consist of a simple hook, presumably hammered into the wood itself, with a lamp hanging off of it. In regards to how realistically lampy this variant in particular feels though, it's gonna have to get a 1 chain out of 10 just because of this. As a super professional lamp inspector, this is just unacceptable. So these lamps seem to only be found within the city, much like real life. The style of the lamps change depending where you are. The street lamps in the city have a lot more work and craftsmanship put into them, and the lamp posts themselves are made almost entirely out of what looks to be a kind of metal, and then the lamp is simple but effective. A hook slotting on top attached to the lamp that also has an engraving on it for that extra touch. As we get further away, we see them change to these ones instead. Even the lantern type itself seems less elegant, much more traditionally medieval looking. The only thing is, we can't really know what kind of lanterns they are. Do they use candles or are they oil lamps? I would hazard a guess and say the lamps in the city use oil, while the rest use candles or some other material. And if we take a look carefully, there is a difference in the light produced between the two. The city lamps are a lot brighter compared to the wooden ones, so it would make sense to make this sort of assumption. In Springvale, they seem to use primarily lanterns to carry around, which makes sense. Springvale being the equivalent of a countryside village, with these lanterns being left mostly on top of barrels outside the houses, or if not that, then they have these rounded lanterns hanging in the doorway. Over here at Dragonspine, it's the same thing, aside from the adventurer's tent, and I do have to say I'm quite confused by how these tents even stay stable. We can see there is a lot of support underneath, but those tiny wooden sticks literally look like they could give out any second. Why exactly would you put a giant chunk of metal on top? Just look at this. And what are these bits even for? Decoration? And to top it off, you add a lantern to it as well, though I do like the extra detail compared to the normal lamps. This one sways and gives the impression it actually does have physics. It's very camping out in the middle of nowhere, might get eaten by a slime kind of vibes. So the thing with this lamp, unique to Dragonspine and from the civilization they used to live here, is that you can actually see inside it, and yet there's not really any visible source of light. At least with the others there's an excuse, since they're opaque, but the ones in Dragonspine are see-through. It kind of makes me think of how in a game like Skyrim, for example, they have these Draugr crypts, and the torches there are always on. Is it the Draugr that are always making sure they're lit? We'll never really know, so we as the player are kind of expected to suspend our disbelief and make assumptions. Maybe it's just an old civilization technology thing that we'll have to chalk it up to. See what I did there? The chalk prints? The day I stop putting a Sino joke in every video is the day you'll know I've been replaced with a clone. Let's just move on. Now I know what you're thinking. B, this isn't even a lamp. I think all that pure water is getting to you. And yes, you are right.
Wait a minute!
This isn't pure water. This is gamersupps. Be here with breaking news, everyone. From the 6th of September to the 13th, a whole week, gamersupps will be providing free shipping for orders and free samples as well. So be sure to make the most of it by using my code and pick some up for yourself. This has been B for the Teyvat Times reporting in. Back to you, Lamp Inspector. I just wanted to take a brief detour to point out a few things anyway. These torches are commonly found all over Teyvat since they're what Hilichels use, and it makes sense since there's a specific Hilichel that even uses torches to attack, so we can only assume that they're the ones lighting them. But here, just how exactly are the flames still alive with this million miles per hour wind we've got going on? Dawn Winery also uses the same lanterns as the rest of Mondstadt, but I will just quickly point out these two furniture pieces. Both are used as sort of storage shelters, but there is an ever so slight difference in their lamps, because they are the same model, but one is missing the support underneath. Mondstadt seems to have the least variety though when it comes to light fixtures compared to other regions, as we'll soon see. too. Now before we get straight into Liyue, we also see here that for a main trade route there is a severe lack of light sources, which is just incredibly dangerous. You can see with this type of lantern, the rope is holding the different bamboo in place, but this part, is it just standing there all free flow, or is it indented into the wooden bridge? Now this set on the other hand is certainly an interesting one. You've got what is essentially a plank of wood with a smaller plank on top to hold the lanterns, which are attached nicely with some string, but it's in a bit of a precarious situation to say the least. All this lantern is really doing is leaning against this stall, but it really looks like it could fall any second. In Chingsa village, we've got the lanterns that hang from the house, and then the ones on the posts here, for example. The lanterns on the posts actually look to be collapsible, assuming this is meant to be bamboo inside it perhaps. And these ones even have string in several places to support it, in the correct spots too, as the wood is leaning this way. They've placed more on this side. And finally, at the entrance to the village is a display of multiple lanterns tied to the rope on top. The inn has a beautiful display of quite a few different paper lantern types. This whole display is used as the centerpiece for the interior of the inn. There are a few floor lamps scattered around too, outside, and this one in particular is very cool, going with the nautical theming of the lower docks. So a lot of rope being used to anchor the post, with the nails hammered into the floorboard and a wheel to hoist the lantern up or down. And unlike Mondstadt, all of Liyue's paper lanterns sway back and forth to give the impression of physics. If you listen closer, you can even hear the wind blowing. Lighting in Liyue Harbour is very much so used to indicate prestige and position. The further up into the city you go, the more this becomes clear. Not only is the pavilion quite literally elevated above the rest of the harbour, but the closer you get, the more stone lamps start to appear until that's basically all there is. That or incredibly ornate and detailed paper lanterns, displaying the wealth of the area. This simple lantern type is strewn all across the city, either hung from or inside bamboo, and well, that rope seems to be struggling a little bit, but I'm sure it's fine. Rope phasing probably happens now and then in this universe. The shop and market area definitely stands out with the billboards lighting up the streets, though these ones are a bit of a head scratcher, as is technology in general in Teyvat. It's not really clear what form of lighting this is. That is a bit awkward. That one's sort of just floating there. I guess Chef Mao is not only a great chef, but can also defy the laws of physics too. And these stairs just speak for themselves. Then as we head up here, the lamps become more and more prevalent. The paper lanterns giving off a warmer orange light, where the stone lamps are slightly harsher and yellow. These ones you can see inside, but again, there's not actually any light source in there. It sort of just appears out of thin air. There's unfortunately practically no light sources on this side toward the chasm, so it must be incredibly difficult to navigate if you're making your way there. It's not until you come out on the other side of this tunnel that you even see any lanterns. Not just that, but with this side of Liyue, who in their right mind is going to volunteer to come and light up these lanterns constantly? It's overrun with monsters. The lamps at the chasm make nice thematic use of both the lumen stone and metal, considering this is of course a mine. This one looks like a sconce, except not attached to a wall, but rather a piece of wood. The use of metal is very on point. The lampposts use a metal fixture to hold the lumen stone in place, and it's also used here to hold the wood in place. But the rest of the metal parts seem purely decorative. Yeah, the only problem with the chasm lamps is that, well, they're all kind of broken. Wait, shouldn't the indents in the metal be on top if it's meant to be attached to the wood underneath? Liyue overall though earns the spot for region with the most lights, as you would kind of expect.
That's a lot of
lights. And on the topic of lumen stone and rocks, as Natlan is now officially out, we could take a look at some of their light fixtures too. So what's very unique about Natlan is that each tribe has its own style, and therefore the lamps also do, though they seem to share one commonality, which is these rocks. Much like the chasm, they work in different ways to normal lighting, but this is probably also to do with Natlan's geography and that its ley lines are not the same as the rest of Teyvat's. So we can hazard a guess at how the lighting, well, stays lit. So with Natlan, Hoyo have really upped their lamp game. I mean, what's the point of having the same old lantern type everywhere when you can use rainbow rocks? For the children of Echoes, fitting with the rock theme, their lanterns have a rocky base and a metal pole sticking out, and it even has a cute little wooden Tapetlasaur painting on top, pointing the way for you. And then a hook slotted in here for a simple hooked lamp. Even the lamp itself looks like a drill, a very cute detail. And of course the lighting inside is using those rocks. I believe this is also the first time we're seeing anything interacting with light sources in the game, with the little moth things flying around. I'm not sure exactly what the insinuation for this is though, whether it's due to the special properties these rocks possess. And how is this even working? Do you think they just have pyro users trapped underneath for hours on end, forced to bend fire every few seconds for the players' entertainment? And if the lanterns aren't hanging from a pole, they're hung using this very industrial looking hook in other places throughout the tribe. Continuing with the rock theme, they even have pointy shaped rocks with holes carved out of them and light rocks placed inside. We'll also see that the colour differentiates each tribe too. This one, for instance, uses a quite harsh reddish orange hue. The Scions use quite a lot of fire as their light sources, but the other main sources are these basic lanterns with rope wrapped around them that look to only be placed down on boxes and not fixed to anything, for convenience we can assume. For more permanent light sources they use rounded lamps hung above, or more torch shaped lamps fixed to the walls of buildings. These ones might be removable as well, since it's got rope holding it together, which would make sense. They would work well as torches too. When you look at this tribe from a distance, you can see the colour hue is a much more subdued yellow. So the people of the springs have these floor lamps, and while they do kind of look like they're made of paper, it's probably safe to assume that these are also magic rocks. This, on the other hand, I have no idea how to explain, because I do not think Natlan has electricity, but maybe these are just extra bright rocks. The lanterns are shaped like harpoons, fitting with this tribe's theme. Made of wood, it starts out with the impression of a surfboard stand almost, that then transforms into the shape of a harpoon on top, with the little point holding the lantern. And even the light itself, encased in wood, is harpoon shaped. The yellow colour of the lighting here is somewhat harsher when compared to the Scions, which does fit with the tribe's carefree and happy attitude as well. The stadium, the centerpiece of Natlan. As the gathering place for everyone in Natlan, there is of course a lot of fire.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Fire!
But even these are different. Only problem is, it's very unclear what is exactly being burned in these flames. For the other regions, it has clearly been wood, but here, that might not necessarily be the case. It could be another special kind of rock. And see here, there isn't even a source for these flames. This could well just be thanks to the Pyro Archon, considering she takes care of the place, perhaps even an extension of the everlasting flame. Then, we have the shaved ice, colourful looking rocks that I really want to eat, and they give off a smaller red hue. The other areas have them hanging from stalls. This table lamp variant here is particularly interesting because it looks almost like a trophy full of delicious looking shaved ice. Anyway, liyue certainly trumps the regions in sheer number, but I'm particularly impressed with the range of lamps in Natlan and the role they play in setting each tribe apart from one another. Next time, if we do return for this series, I'd like to take a look at the other regions and their light fixtures, but for now,